firm. So under her leadership, she's experienced outrageous success, but she believes in leaving things better, and she found it. So beyond just helping create outrageous success on the private side, she's involved in pretty much everything good in Charlotte, from the chamber, ASC, McColl Center. So she's involved in everything, and she has graciously agreed to host our fifth final draft. So without further ado, big round of applause for Jennifer Appleby.
Amazing environment that is just buzzing with creativity and innovation, Camp North End. So welcome to all of you. How many are first timers at Final Draft? Excellent, excellent. Chandler forgot to mention one other little organization that I'm very involved in, and that is the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library. Thank you. So I'm thrilled to be here because I am a huge champion and advocate for our libraries, and I truly believe that libraries are essential to informed and engaged communities. I once read something, I wish I had said it, but you can't be a great city unless you have a great library system. So thank you. You're supporting your library by being here. I'm also incredibly honored and excited to be here because I get to share the stage tonight with two gentlemen who I admire greatly. Both are incredibly passionate about Charlotte, and both are committed to making Charlotte a more vibrant and welcoming and equitable place to all who desire to live, work, learn, share, create, grow, and most importantly, excel. And guess what? It takes great leadership to make that happen. So we are here tonight to talk about leadership, more specifically, authentic leadership. I believe that authentic leaders are real and genuine, honest and purposeful, and have a strong set of core values and beliefs. And I think you will all agree that the gentlemen sitting to my left have all of those qualities and many more. So, while they certainly need no introduction, I'm going to spend a minute and brag about each one of them just a little bit. Starting with Councilman Braxton Winston. Braxton was, go ahead, let it go. Member and is serving his first term on City Council. He is a stagehand and grip and member of Charlotte's thriving sports, television, and entertainment production community. He is a proud member of the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees Union, and if I might add, one of my peers in the vibrant creative community. He's also an influential citizen journalist producing stories not covered by traditional media outlets and employing new models of citizen engagement. He holds a bachelor's degree in anthropology from Davidson College, I'm ready to get through this, where he was a two-time letterman on the football team. Please welcome Braxton. And that other guy down there you might know. Prior to co-founding McColl Partners, a middle market mergers and acquisition advisory firm in 2001, and Falfurrius Capital Partners, a middle market private equity firm in 2006, Hugh McColl served as chairman and chief executive officer of Bank of America. During his tenure, he grew the institution more than 50-fold, just a tad, as the bank greatly expanded its offerings of financial products and services, entered new markets across the U.S. and globally, and became the industry leader in retail, commercial, corporate, and investment banking. Since retiring, did you retire? Okay. career at Bank of America, he has also founded 2 fine art consulting firms, MME Fine Art in New York and McColl Fine Art in Charlotte. He earned a bachelor's degree in business administration at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and served as an officer in the U.S. Marine Corps. He and his wife Jane have 3 children and 8 grandchildren. Please welcome the amazing. So now I'm excited. Really, really good things. We know why you're here tonight, and that is to hear from these 2 gentlemen, to learn, to be inspired by their stories. So we're going to dive right in. We're going to give you time for questions later. But let's start, gentlemen, with the first question. How would each of you define authentic leadership? And Braxton, we'll start with you.
Well, I'll use both of those words, I guess. Authentic, to me, it just means natural, right? It's natural. It's who you are. It's genuine. It's organic. Leadership, I often say when I was running and as I continue to hold office, I don't want to be a politician. I want to bring leadership and government. A politician literally puts his ball on the ground and says, this is where I am, and I'm going to bring people to that. And I'm going to surround myself with people that think the same thing like me, and I'm only going to work towards those things that I truly believe in my personal kind of life art. I don't think that's what a leader is. I think a leader takes the whole, the people, thing, the entity that he's supposed to, or he or she is supposed to help guide into consideration. And authentic leadership would be doing that in a way that really starts from within, in terms of where you do put your value, where you do put your energy that comes from you, and not necessarily what other folks are putting on to you. That makes any sense.
Makes a lot of sense. Hugh, what about you?
Well, I hate to follow him, but anyway, I actually think that, a lot of people want to be a leader, and to be a leader, you have to have followers. So the question really is, why would anybody follow you? And so I think people follow somebody that can take them somewhere that they can't go by themselves. And in order to be the leader, you have to be able to know where we should go. You have to be able to paint a work picture that everybody can understand. And you have to help your team get there while they help you get there. And so when I was working at the bank, I think that I had a lot of leadership jobs, or really people would call them management jobs. But the truth is that I always cared about my own people first. And I have this little litany that if you look after your people, they'll look after the customers, and that'll look after the shareholders. And that's really what I believe, and that's how I ran my company. And it really gets down to caring about other people. And it really, if I may break to a rule and add, that you have to understand that you accomplish more through others than you do through by yourself. The way to accomplish things with others is just think about them first. That's what you have to do.
It's a great point, and I know that you've lived by that. So here's a question. Have you always viewed yourself as leaders? Is that a title you're comfortable with? I mean, like Hugh, were you leading the 3rd grade? I mean, like, what does that feel like? So that's the question. Have you always viewed yourself as leaders? Do you feel comfortable with that title?
Yeah, I do. It's something over the past 2 years I definitely struggle with a little bit because of where I kind of emerged from in Charlotte. It was during September 2016, but nobody owned that, right? There were no followers. There were people out there. There was Charlotte out there expressing ourselves. And I had a certain role in that, where I was on the front line of things, and people were kind of pushing me to amplify voices and such. But that was, there was no ownership over that. There were so many different leaders out there in different capacities. But in general, I have been kind of bred to be a leader. I grew up, always was in sports, son of a Marine, sitting next to me.
We're going to talk about that.
Captain of the football team after my sophomore year in high school, 2 years. I was part of a program growing up in New York called Prep for Prep, where I was a public school student up through middle school, and I got involved in this program, and they really went through this intense academic preparation to go to boarding schools. I went to a boarding school called Phillips Academy in Andover, but it was more than just academic preparation. It was preparing you to be a leader in the community. It was that you weren't just supposed to go there and better yourself, but you were going there because you needed to come back and use those opportunities to grow and bring opportunities back to the community. And as Hugh said, I think that's part of what leadership is. You bring stuff back to your people. So I've been kind of bred to be that, and I've been lucky enough to be put in a position where all that training is turned into real world knowledge and experience.
You were preparing for that day in 2016, and we're going to talk more about that. Hugh, what about you? Are you comfortable with that title?
Oh, yeah.
I thought you might say that.
I'm really uncomfortable when I'm not in charge. I was going to tell you that. No, I need to say I was the oldest son, and we lived with grandmother, so I had a mother and a grandmother that built on me, and I was raised to believe that I was sent here by God to run things. And so from the get-go, I was always the guy that was in charge of, picking teams. Is this thing not working? Oh, no, it's not working. And
Not loud enough, so I'm going to let you
so I was captain. I was president of my class, my freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year, president of the student body, captain of the football team, captain of the basketball team, and captain of the baseball team. President of the fraternity. And when I came to the bank, I saw quite clearly that the best job was president's job, and that's what I wanted to do. That's what I did. So, yeah, I like being in charge.
Okay, you all are going to share that later.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I think another attribute of an authentic leader is someone who's not afraid to fail. This is going to be interesting, hearing Hugh's answer to this. So, I think we'd all be interested in knowing how failure, or having the courage to fail, has informed your perspectives as leaders. Take a minute. Let us know if you need a beer. And what do you think about that one?
I'll eat. Well, I think growing up as an athlete, that's one of the things, right? Is that you can't be afraid to fail. When you practice, and then to really perform, to make a play, you don't think about it. You just have to go out there and do. And you got to go out there and do full speed, right? When you start to think about it, you will fail, right? If you don't trust your training, if you don't trust your instinct, you will fail, and you might even hurt yourself, in doing that. But if you go full speed, you're not going to make every play, but you have the chance to do something great, and you will lose. You will lose, right? You will lose, but losing is sometimes good,
because it teaches you things. It's how you recover from that failure. You know, I didn't win a championship until I got to high school, and I started playing ball in first grade. And I was always good at things, but you know, you just never got there. And it's the winning all the time can breed a type of complacency, I think. You know, sometimes that might be what happens in politics or government, right? It builds a sense of complacency. Losing makes you want to get better. Losing makes you look into yourself and figure out, what else can you do? What did I do wrong? What did I do right?
Well, I don't know how I can add much to that. I've not been afraid of much, but I did have a fear of failure when I first started out. I was married, we had a baby on the way, we had no money, we were making $4,500 a year, and I knew that I couldn't fail. I mean, so that drove me a lot. I'd say the fear of failure drove me a lot early in my career. Later, we did a lot of very aggressive things in our business that no one else even thought about, but I never was afraid that we wouldn't succeed. We had a terrific team of people, and we were like a clan. We believed in each other, and we paid almost zero attention to what other people were doing. We only cared about us, what we were doing, and we, changed the damn world. So we weren't really afraid of anybody. Still not, I might add.
Okay, so hold the phone. Let's got another question for you. So, Hugh, speaking of the bank, typically when people think of banks, the word innovation doesn't immediately come to mind. But during your time at Nations Bank, before it was Bank of America, Al Lerner, the former MNC financial chairman, said of you, Hugh does not deal with the banking business in its current state. He always deals with the banking business as he thinks it will be. So my question to you, Hugh, is, you weren't afraid of anything, but how in God's name did you get all of those incredible ideas and all of that innovation off the ground in a space that is historically pretty risk adverse?
Well, I think that's part of the issue. When I came to the bank and got up a little bit and I was trying to get business, I found that the Yankees had all the business. So the first thing, really the big northern banks had all the business, and then the blue nose banks had the rest of it. That is the Wachobias of the world and people that thought, that were sort of upper class, and we were sort of little league. I hated that. I don't like really being little, and I didn't really like not having all the big business. So we decided to get it. The other thing I didn't understand was that Greensboro was 100 miles north of us, and we could have a branch in Greensboro, but Greenville, South Carolina was 100 miles south of us, and we couldn't have one there because of a red line on the map. So that made no damn sense to me, so I got the law changed.
So that led to interstate bank, yes?
Yes, we changed the law. My lawyers actually wrote the law, and we changed it. And but I mean, we understood what we wanted to do. What helped me a great deal is that my competitors had the laws were what I call franchise protection acts. So that very franchise played into what he said. The people became fat and happy. They had their little territory, nobody bothered them. All of a sudden, we were there. And I developed a language, particularly I used in mergers. I was trying to buy the Bank of Asheville. For 10 years, we tried to buy that Bank of Asheville, and they wouldn't talk to us. And finally, I told this boy that ran it, I said, my tanks are on the border, and we're coming in. You can either sell to us, or we're going to run all over you. And so I later did that to Chase Manhattan. So I mean, you got to have that attitude that we're coming rather than make a damn what you're doing.
Can you imagine that conversation in the most polite Southern accent ever?
Yeah, but I'm really kind of happy to talk about that.
So there you go, lessons learned
So when people ask me about, kind of what's going on, especially people like from back home in New York that I haven't talked to in a while, I haven't seen them, they're like, what? They're like, how things happen. I'm like, well, honestly, everything has changed, but everything is still the same. You characterize it as this great and stable life. Life is great. I love life. It's amazing. But it has never been stable, right? I'm a middle class, if that, like when we talk about AMIs, I have a family of 5, and we make about $45,000, $50,000 a year. And that's been the same, that income has been the same, really, in my whole working life. So I've been struggling. I went to Davidson College, and I'm from New York City. My father is a New York City fireman. My mother's a school teacher, very middle class, right? But it's New York City. So it looks like they make a lot of money. So when I went to Davidson, I was hit with, to come here, you're gonna have to pay $30,000. And I had been on this track my whole life to get this level of education, to get these opportunities. It was either go in debt or go to a SUNY, which there's nothing wrong with a SUNY, State University of New York, amazing schools. But why did I work this hard? Why did I make these sacrifices? Why did I leave my friends? Why wasn't I at my cousin's birthday parties and things like that? So I did that, and I came out. I'm still $50,000 in debt. I'm living check to check. And so when this happened, really the thing that made me stay out there was when the police were taking Keith Lamont Scott's truck, and I heard this voice. I had to go to work that night. I had to do a loadout in a stagehand, so there was a concert in the Spectrum Center, and I had to be there at 9 o'clock that night, and I got there about 7 o'clock. And this voice came over, "That's my daddy's car. Why'd y'all shoot my daddy? What did he was waiting for this kids to get off the bus. He didn't have to do that, And I thought of my 2 daughters, and I thought about my son, and I dropped them off to school every day. And I won't have no answers to this girl's questions. I wouldn't have no answers to my daughter's questions if she was asking, how do we prevent this, or how do I prepare my son, for this reality? I don't have these answers to these questions. And while I had to be at work, if I don't ask these questions now, what right do I ever have to ask them ever again? If nobody's going to ask the questions for her, they're going to I can't just tell her to go home and cry into a pillow and tough love. So it was a bit selfish, right? What am I going, I need to answer these. I don't have answers. My daughter is inquisitive. She was 3 years old, but she asked a lot of questions. Why were you late? Why did this happen? I ain't had the answers. And I don't like not having the answers for my children. And then I did see that I knew some of the cops that was there. I heard what the people write into their government, and maybe not in the most effective in terms of pushing the conversation forward, but they were legitimate. And I knew that I had the opportunity, I knew I had the ability to verbalize those things, and in a way that was, again, authentic, but could push the conversation forward. Hopefully, if there was any kind of legitimacy on the other side. And so that's why.
Courage. How many of us would step up? So, fast forward, you're now on city council. You have been a huge proponent of adding transparency and creating dialogue around subjects that people have historically steered clear of. You're making progress on some big issues that don't have easy solutions. So the question is, and I'd like you to share with the audience, how have you managed to navigate these waters, especially as a newcomer to politics?
I constantly just try to ask myself, what would Braxton do? Right? No, I don't mean it like that. But not councilmen do? You know, not what do people want me to do, right? Not what is the easy thing to do, but what do I think? Because that is what has gotten me here. I've showed you guys I haven't said anything different that I wasn't saying 5 years ago, right? I've been given a platform, and all my life experiences guide my choices, my decisions, and the things that I say. So I just try to breathe. I try to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and I just think about, you know, I go back from everywhere from September 2016 to the last week dealing with the kids, to growing up on the baseball field, to, you know, how do I deal with these situations? What are my values? And what I want to do? Like, honestly, I am in a situation now where a lot of people say, if I was there, I would do this. So, do it, right? And that's how I'm going about it.
Okay, so we're going to ask you a question here. So many leaders can pinpoint one or two people who have had a transformative impact on their career. Hugh, there's hundreds in Charlotte that would name you as that person. But who was that person for you?
Well, I've been asked that question a lot, and I always answer the same way. My father taught me everything I know about business, and taught me everything I know about how to do business. That is, that you give your word, you do it. That you shake hands, that's the deal. You don't need a lawyer, you don't need anything to do that. And I learned all that from my father, and he gave me a lot of responsibility. When I was 14, I would weigh cotton, pay the people. They had to get used to having a 14-year-old weighing the cotton and paying them. I drove the bus. I'd go to the bank and borrow money for the family. I did all that stuff when I was still 14. Learned double entry bookkeeping. My father taught me all that. Tom Stores, who was my boss for 17 years, who had a PhD in economics and was a brilliant man, had tremendous difficulty in talking to people. And but he taught me how to plan, how to deal with a problem, how to organize to overcome a problem. He was brilliant, and I learned a great deal from him. So my father and Tom Stores are really the two men that I got the most from. Although I learned something from everybody every day, you still, you know, I learned something today actually. So it's funny what you do if you keep your mind open. But anyway, that's some of my
So
story.
let me add on to that question. So you learned from your father. What are you passing on to your 3 children and 8 grandchildren?
Well, basically the same thing. The two things that I really impressed upon them is that work hard. Everybody's smart, so you're not going to outsmart anybody. So we learned that in our own company. That the one differentiator was who worked hard, who was ambitious, who was aggressive, who worked, not who was the smartest. Although being smart helps, but that's not what gets you there. And then I tried to teach them, and I think they act that way. I like the way my grandchildren behave, is that everybody counts, treat everybody the same. And they do that. And finally I told them it's hard about banking the tellers, but I told them to avoid debt. Pay for their houses. The first thing that you need to do is own your house. Then nobody can throw you out. So those are things.
Excellent. Okay. What about you, Braxton? So one person that has had 1 or 2 people that have had an impact on your life.
I see this article going around a lot about black males and the lack of black male teachers in their lives. And obviously, I would say, honestly, my actual schooling, that has been true. And I think about this, but I'm like, well, I didn't have those folks either, but I'm all right. And I realized that I had a lot of strong male leadership figures in my life, starting from my coaches. My father, of course, was very present in my life, But in terms of leadership, I really did learn from my middle school coach, Coach O.J. Stevenson. I remember he lives in Wake Forest, North Carolina now. He always chimes in. He saw me throw. I remember first season I played football was a D tackle, and we had a water break, and I just picked up a football and just chucked it. Right? He said, "You're my quarterback next year," and he taught me how to play quarterback. And quarterback is this is a position where it's skill, but it is about you have to lead. And I really took that. I took that really seriously, and he trusted me, right? He let me call my own plays eventually. He taught me not just the physical aspect of it, but how to run a game. I got hurt. I hurt my finger and I couldn't play. No, I wasn't hurt. There was a weight limit. And one game I was over the weight limit. And the other team wouldn't give me a pound or anything like that. So he said, you know what? He just handed me the clipboard. And this is 7th grade, you know? And he was like, it's your team. And I was like, I want to win, like Hugh's. I think I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but when you're in charge, because you want to be in charge, because you want to win, right? When you think you give your team the best chance to win, when you're. So I don't like to lose. I don't like to lose. And he's the kind of lessons that he's taught me to seek out that leadership wherever I go, and I have had that. I've had that in that program, Mr. Bornero, when I went to Andover, Bobby Edwards. I've had a lot of strong male leadership in my life, and I'm lucky for it.
Did you win that game?
Yes.
All right.
I scored a lot of touchdowns.
I'm not surprised. Okay, we're going to switch the subject to Charlotte, a place we all love. So I'm going to start with Hugh. Hugh, you have been famously quoted, that should make you a little nervous, as saying, it used to be you could fire a shotgun down Tryon at 5 in the afternoon and not hit anybody. That's how boring this town is.
Hold on. I didn't know that. What I tell people when I got here in 2001, I tell people after 5 o'clock you can run up and down Tryon Street butt naked. That's what I say.
That's Hugh's version.
With a shotgun? And yes, tell me, man.
Okay, all right. So wait, there's a question. Hugh, there's a question to this. Over the past 40 years, you've been deeply involved in everything Charlotte, from sports to arts to philanthropy, all in addition to your day job. This being Charlotte's 250th anniversary, how do you feel about where we are as a city?
Well, I got two things to say about that. I think the first thing is we have this 2 mile by 2 mile, 4 square mile center city. It's the only city in America where you can live in the center city, walk to the opera, the ballet, the symphony, the baseball game, the basketball game, or the NFL. No matter what city you think about, you can't do that anywhere within Charlotte, North Carolina. So, I feel pretty good about that. So the second part of the answer is that I am concerned, deeply concerned about the fact that somehow on the way to the forum we forgot about 40% of our population, and that we're so affluent that we're almost too busy. It's not that we're too busy to care, we're too busy to see. We don't allow ourselves to see the people that are not making it. And so the good news, as I see it, is that the city has come alive, people care, money's flowing, ideas are flowing. So I'm very positive about where we're going, but we have got a lot of work to do.
So you think we're more aware of some of those challenges, and I'm going to let Braxton talk about that in a minute. So, Braxton, a lot of great things have happened in our past. You just mentioned them, but there's still a long way to go. Can you talk about what you'd like Charlotte to look like in the future?
Well, think about September 2016 and what doesn't get told enough was the experience that we were having out there. Obviously, the part of that turned into riots or violence gets looped over and over again, which was only a few hours. But there were hundreds of hours really spent. How many hours in a week? You know, we were out there talking, putting context in. Everybody was kind of sharing their knowledge to really kind of understand what our issues are. For the first, the Charlotte way is to not talk about the bad things. So you feel them, but there are good things going on. So as long as you talk about the good things and focus on the good things, the bad doesn't exist. And what became really, really clear to me, and I've been trying to verbalize this really ever since, is that obviously Charlotte doesn't exist in a vacuum. We exist in the greater state of North Carolina, and the larger experiment of America and self-governance and self-rule. And we are the synthesis of all the good and the bad. But we have an opportunity, being where we are. I think we're at a real inflection point. We're still sort of that small southern town, people, especially, nobody really knows, are we in Virginia, are we in South Carolina? North Carolina is usually the third choice, right? But we are a major player. We are a large city. We're a growing metropolis. We're a financial capital. We have the resources. Everybody has family or some type of connection to this place in America. We have the opportunity, if we're real with ourselves, to really kind of be the beacon of what this experiment in democracy mixed with capitalism can be. We got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do, but there are a lot of people that are doing the work. If we can play a long game, if we can continue to be authentic and honest with ourselves, if we can put everything, as one of my colleagues on council, Mr. Bakari, likes to use buckets. If we can understand the different buckets that we're using at the time to be academic, right, and have philosophical conversations, while there's the time to be about action and maybe about healing. All those things have to happen at once. That we can be a beacon of light. Every city is dealing with affordable housing. Every city is dealing with generational poverty and inequity, because again, that's what this country was founded on. This idea of white supremacy, that only certain people were able to have equal protections of rights under the law, and that's why we are where we're at right now. That this is hundreds of years in the making. I think we're having serious conversations about that right now. It's not fast enough, but as long as we keep it consistent for a long time, we'll be all right. Reading about the Space Force. We're too busy reading about the Space Force. Sign me up.
Okay, so Charlotte agenda this morning was around Charlotte's identity. So there's always lots of topics around who is Charlotte, what do we stand for, what is our unique identity.
Are we a world-class city?
He offered up a couple of ideas, and so I'm interested in hearing what both of your comments are to that. So here's a couple that he threw out there. So the Wall Street of the South. We've been calling ourselves a financial center. That was
I just kind of want to be Charlotte.
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to be. I mean, that's who we should be. I think about it often. Before 2016, before September 2016, honestly, I never really felt like this was my home. I never felt comfortable here. I always felt this goes back. This long backstory. I would have to go through my Davidson days and 9/11 and you know, all type of stuff. But I just never felt welcome here. Part of it does have to do again with some of those inequities. You know, I experienced. You know, it was hard for me to spend my money as a young black man in Charlotte. I always saw New York as my home. I left in 2008, went out to LA and spent a couple of years from Charlotte. I felt more connected to LA, you know, more at home there. And then when I came back, some circumstance brought me back here. I thought when I moved out to LA in 2008, I was never coming back. But something changed. and 2 years ago, when I felt like that night was kind of crazy, I felt like I was supposed to be here. I felt like my life could have been in danger, and I was okay with that because I was where I was supposed to be. And there's some reason that I kept coming. I keep being brought here because there's something about Charlotte. There is something about it. There is something here. I don't know exactly what it is, but it doesn't have to be an industry. It doesn't have to be a certain person. It's a crossroads. When I kind of look at one of the things I did after September 2016 was I went back and really tried to figure out what I was doing and what we needed to be doing. Charlotte has always been a crossroads. Before European settlers came here, it was a very strategic crossroads for the indigenous people of the greater Appalachian community. It has a certain geographic kind of quality that connects the continent. During the Civil War, when the Union Army destroyed the Confederate Naval Yard in Norfolk, they moved the Navy Yard here to Charlotte. You all know it's a 4-hour drive to the ocean, so it's not close, right? So why would you put a naval yard here? But because of the way it connected all the places, the railroads and everything like that, it connected those things. It's different when, you know, Wilmington was a huge slave port, but Charlotte was where it was honestly more like a northern city, where you had industry around it and skilled labor, factory labor. So we're just Charlotte, man. We should just be Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah, well, I don't really know how I follow what you just said. But let me tell you two things. When I came in 1959, I got married 30 days after I got here. I asked people at the church, we joined the church, and I said, what do you like about this place? And they said, because I thought it was really boring. I don't know when you come out of the Marine Corps to a place that's got a church every other block, it's kind of dirty. And no whiskey by the drink. Anyway, people said to me, well, this is a great place to raise a family. Now, if you ask me today, what I think the most about Charlotte, I still think it's a great place to raise a family. So there's nothing wrong with being a great place to raise a family. Now, what we found out recently is it's not a great place to raise a family for everybody. And that's our problem, that we sort of taken our eye off the ball about everybody as opposed to just us. And it is a great place, and like you said, we just ought to be Charlotte, and it ought to be a great place to raise a family for everybody. And that's really what I'm working on at the moment. He and I work together, and we have a group of men that get together, and we are multi-hued. We have, we're from really multiple races and ethnic backgrounds and religions. And we have been getting together for 2 years with each other. And one of the great things that's come out of it is that we have gotten where we look at each other just as men, and we don't have adjectives in front of it. And we are working together to try to deal with problems, to put our muscle behind issues. And you have, the only qualification you have to have is that you can show up. Well, in other words, if you want to sit down and talk, we'll love to have you. Anyway, we're working on being Charlotte and bringing everybody to the table.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your relationship, okay? So, Braxton, a lot of people know that Hugh endorsed you for city council, but less of us know the actual story of how you two got to know each other and the impact you have had on each other. So, who wants to take the mic and tell us a little bit about that?
So we got to know each other at one of these Champions events. But I got to know Hugh McColl probably like most of you. My time at Davidson, and there's a connection to the library here. I had a non-traditional time at Davidson, and I ended up finishing while I moved down to Charlotte, and I lived off campus, which, if anybody knows Davidson, you can live off campus, but you have to live within a certain radius, basically not past exit 30. But that's another long story. But one of the things, I had to write a paper, and I didn't want to go up to Davidson to do the research, and it had to be something about North Carolina. And I didn't know what the heck I was going to write, so I went to the main library and went up to the Carolina room. I discovered this Carolina room. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I just started like taking books of people off, and there's this person and that person, or Raleigh and this. And again, I had just bought my first car. I took a loan from Bank of America. Very much in debt from college, and I was cursing the banks out because of, And so I see this title with this smiling guy on the front, and the story of how he deregulated the banks and started the largest bank in America, right? And I was like, oh, I'm about to read this, and I'm about to tear a new one in this paper. Right? I don't think I ever really told you this.
This is the first time you mentioned that to him?
Well, in this detail, I think.
Okay.
This is the guy who's responsible for this bullshit. So I started reading, and he gets into it, and tells me about his childhood, and he says he's a Marine. I was like, all right, he's a Marine. My father knows, put one pants on one leg at a time. I understand that. And so, and then they starts telling the story. Literally, kind of what you said. I took myself back to the Carolina room, reading that book about wanting to buy the banks and being 100 miles to Wachovia, 100 miles, and not being able to do that. And he pushed it. He started the regional banks, and it actually made sense. It made sense that people couldn't work in Charlotte and go home to South Carolina and take out money in South Carolina. That didn't make any sense. And so the stories, that same kind of attitude portrayed himself in the book, and I was like, whatever. And the author said basically everywhere his private jet was landing was the stock price of companies in the area, like a 100-mile radius surrounding that airport, would increase because they would think there's a chance that Hugh's going to come and buy my bank. For real. And buy my bank or my business, or if he buys the bank in my area, it's going to do well, so my business is going to do better and everything like that. And it was like an anecdote from him that said, wait, I'm landed in Atlanta and I can access my money, because it was different. Regional was different than national. So if you got past a certain, once he changed the laws, once you got past a certain radius, you still couldn't access funds across lines. Sorry. So what he said was, it's not fair. the only reason I can access my money is because I'm wealthy, right? And I thought of my mother when we would go to Disney World or Virginia King's Dominion in the summertime, and she had to save up. And we couldn't access the ATM. She had to take thousands of dollars, you know, and put some here and hide some here because it wasn't safe to be in one place. And he mentioned that it's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. And that's kind of what kind of pushed him to the national kind of deregulation. I started thinking for the first time, you know, well, there's two edges to every sword. And we met at the Champions, and I was kind of starstruck when I saw that. And he asked a question. He asked a question about, well, why don't black and brown people in the communities like to work with police, even if, you know, they're trying to help them? If somebody in their family got murdered or shot or something like that. And I gave him this kind of bumbling answer after the meeting, and he was like, all right, I can see that, and I wasn't happy with it. I wrote him an long email after, and it was about an experience that I had helped a neighbor who was severely beaten by her boyfriend, and she was from Central America. And I helped, and my wife and I were the only people that spoke Spanish, and this boy had saw everything, could speak completely good English, and I didn't know that, but he saw his mother beaten, every bone in her face broken, stabbed. The man set the house on fire, cut a gas line, and he wouldn't say anything. He was obviously trained not to talk to police, talk to firemen, because we know, look what's happening now, right? You try to go get help, to talk to the authorities, the people that are supposed to help you, and you end up criminalizing yourself. And that happens too much. And that's kind of how we met. And then we had breakfast.
I do have to add that the reason that he first came to my attention was that I was in Little Rock, Arkansas, making a speech to a bunch of bankers, and I'm getting paid, I might add. And otherwise, I'd never go to Little Rock. It's midnight. I'm not drinking, and I can't go to sleep, so I'm kind of on CNN, and there's a riot going on, and they say it's in Charlotte, and I think, these people are always getting us mixed up with some other city. This is not possible.
Right.
And I see this guy stripped to the waist with, you know, with a Black Power salute and standing in front of long dreadlocks. And I think, I wonder who the hell that is. And so, not several days later, I find myself in a meeting with him, and he's taking on the chief of police. You remember this. Yeah. And the chief is sitting to my right, he's sitting to my left, and so that got me really interested in him, and so I went up afterwards, and the rest is history.
Hang on to that microphone because I've got another question surrounding this. So you've mentioned that you've had a lot of really enlightening, but at times uncomfortable conversations with Braxton. So my question for you is, what have you learned from him and about yourself during some of those conversations?
Well, I think one of the things we all should learn about ourselves, you've got to remember I'm 83, so maybe I don't identify with everybody. Well, they don't identify with me, but I think that those of us who were raised in the South can think of ourselves as not being racist, but in fact have racist thoughts. And it's learning you can have a racist thought that comes at you unsummoned. It just comes up, pops up, and it's something you've been conditioned to through your whole life and listening to other people talk. It could have been parents, could have been schoolmates, could have been anybody. And you haven't gotten into other fellows' shoes. And so one of the things that we've talked about a lot is like, okay, what's it like? You know, what happens? Like, why don't you? I still think, like there's 61 shootings in Chicago and not one person's come forward and said, we know who did it. I mean, you know, it's like, that was just one day I'm talking about, they had 61 shootings. So, I mean, it's still a question, incidentally, that we need to solve. But I think there's so many things that we have learned about each other and about each other as men, and we find that most of the things we care about, whether it's exactly the same thing. We care about our children, we care about our family, we care about our wives, we care about living in a safe place and being able to make a living. And we've learned, we talk to each other. That's the difference. The real difference is we just actually talk to each other. It's not complicated.
So last question, and you might have already answered that, but what is the one thing you admire most about the other? Braxton, why don't you start?
I mean, it's kind of what he was saying, right here. We're just two guys, you know. We're friends, you know, fellow leaders, whatever. But it's just we disagree on things, you know. We'll challenge each other, and we're not afraid to do that, you know. Again, that authenticness. He's gonna tell me when he disagrees. I'm gonna be like, well, you know, I'm gonna make the best decision I can make, you know. You know, he's just Hugh, you know. He's Hugh. Because I ask him, how does he deal with it? Sometimes I think in some ways we might be in a similar situation. I don't want to put myself on no kind of level with you necessarily. You know, when people see him, it's funny to see people interact with him, and it's, you know, because we in service was real powerful people, and they try to little themselves, you know what I'm saying? Like really humble themselves to be in the presence of this great man, which deference is definitely important. But we're friends, you know what I'm saying? Like we can just, and that's what it takes. You know, that's what it takes to be successful. That's the authenticness that you talk about, and that's everything that he's ever been to me. And I think that's all I try to be to him, and that works.
You got anything to add to that here, and then we'll open.
Ditto.
Ditto.
I admire his courage. I admire him as a man. A hell of a man.
We're going to open up to questions. Yes, Karen.
In this time, I see a lot of political divisiveness and social media, which encourages one-way conversations. What do you think is required of leaders in this time that might be different from what it was a while ago?
I'll let you start. That's a different.
Can you repeat the question, please? Yeah, everybody can't hear the question. You want to?
The question was, in this divisive time of political divisiveness, social media, where people are really kind of pushing to one way or the other, how has leadership, the definition of responsibility, how has it changed?
And how do you do it? Maybe you could say political, you could say business, but how do you lead now?
How do you lead now versus back in the day?
Well, you know, that's a great question. I think that arguably what we need to do civically is we need to listen more and talk less. I've never been famous for that. But in all seriousness, I think that all of us are finding it difficult to have an intelligent conversation about issues. We can all agree that it'd be great to have lower taxes, but is it really great to insult on the allies that we put in place? You know, it's like NATO just to illustrate. We created NATO, we Americans. So to destroy it makes no sense. So it'd be nice to be able to have a conversation in which you said, I agree with the good things that are happening here and here and here, but I think this is nuts. You can't have that conversation, really, and it's a problem. But I think the only way I know to deal with it is to just tell the truth all the time. Just make people look at the truth. But it doesn't mean preach. It just really means just always say, what do you think? Like, what do you think about X or Y? You know, and then talk about the facts. I don't know. That's what I think.
So I think if we look past politics sometimes, and you know, like I said, I try to be a leader in government, but I'm a Democrat. but I think of a Democrat because I think first and foremost about, when I think of problems, solutions is how I think of rights and expanding equal protection of the rights under the law for all people. I don't think of free market economics first. I don't necessarily profess the Democratic Party's platform. That's not why I'm a Democrat, you know, and that's an organization. We need to understand that. You know, ideas are different than organizations. And we can agree with people with different kind of labels because, again, it's not the crux of what defines most people. Social media, I am a big proponent of social media, but I don't use it the same way I think of. I agree with you. People kind of push you, get into these algorithms. If you notice, if you pay attention to anything I do on social media, I actually don't participate in a lot of conversations. I try to push interesting information forward that will spark conversation, and I let other people kind of carry it on. I'll make comments here and there, but I just, one, I can't keep up capacity-wise, but it's more for pushing out information. I'm more interested to digest what I think and how I deal with it. So if we use it more as, I think, to understand that it's being sold to us because of the algorithms and everything like that, but more as a vessel and less as kind of a podium of truth, then social media can be much more effective and really put forth leaders as opposed to just kind of demagogues.
2 more questions. Just got a great question. I put too much pressure, didn't I? Okay, question.
I wish this audience were more diverse. Why do you think it isn't more diverse?
Good audience.
What's the question?
Why is this audience not more diverse? It's a good question. So the organizers of this event are going to probably not like this answer a little bit.
Remember, they paid for the beer.
Yeah. Well, you know, honestly, this is part of my social experiment a little bit. If it's not my event that I'm pushing, I don't necessarily advertise it, right? So this didn't go over my social media channels, and there's it's not anything against the foundation. I'm asked to do a lot of things. I do try to show up everywhere because I'm an at-large member, or because of different perspectives. But I don't always. It's not my. I have a lot of things going on. It's not my job to market everybody's event, right? I think it has to do with the audience of the organization that puts it on. It doesn't mean they're bad folks, but I think that's what it speaks to, and that speaks to, again, some of the inequities of the system. What do we as a city? Whereas this is the Library Foundation, a philanthropic organization who is working for the betterment of everybody else, and we have one of the most charitable cities in the world, probably. But still, in that charity, people are excluded. It's not necessarily because of this organization, but it's probably because of, I don't mean to kind of just use colloquial terms, but the system of the philanthropic community that leaves people out.
Well, I was really going to say it's because the Panthers kicked off at 7 o'clock.
I was just going to add that appreciate Braxton's response. I think the library is one of those organizations that serves all. And if you go into the libraries, you know, there's lots of diversity. So there was one more question. Yeah.
Mr. McColl mentioned that as Charlotte grew, he thought that, not that we didn't care, it was just we didn't see. I think you mentioned that was the quote before. Was there a point you think where, what was the point when we stopped seeing? And why do you think we stopped seeing?
Well, I think it has to do with growth. It really has to do with dirt. The reality of living in Valentine, or I don't even know the name of all the communities 500,000 people live there. But they're physically separated from the rest of the city. The philanthropic community really lived truthfully in 3 neighborhoods, in Dilworth and in Myers Park and Eastover, and maybe Elizabeth, and around the country clubs, Charlotte Country Club area too, out of Midwood. And the neighborhoods were close enough in that everything was part of our city. We saw our city. And now you can live on the far south side and take a circuitous route to the airport on 485, or whatever the name of that road is out there. And so you just don't see it. It's living somewhere else and you're living in Charlotte, but you're not living in Charlotte. And that's not negative. I mean, it's just that you have to really work at going to a tough neighborhood around here, like just down the street.
So I'm gonna push back a little bit. So as I was kind of forming stuff, I did a lot of research into history, and this is nothing new. This is how Charlotte was formed. So during the Civil War, Charlotte was really untouched by any battles. It was one of the few southern cities that wasn't destroyed. It still had the infrastructure surrounding it. So it was a very important city during Reconstruction and everything. So there were a lot of families that had a lot of money. Cash was king. So there weren't a lot of carpetbaggers that came down to Charlotte. A lot of the family names that you had, you still had factories and everything like that. It was an epicenter for business. But there was more